this didn't happen by accident. There are structures that have been put in place that have created this environment that we see. And this applies to the entire country, not Baltimore. I mean, I focused on Baltimore in my film because that's where I'm from. And so I, kind of wanted to put a microscope on it. Yeah, this is a problem, not just in cities, in rural areas as well. It's a big issue.
Peace, and welcome to another installment of Cook on Monday Morning. At Cook on Monday Morning, we are building lives that make us excited about Monday morning. We believe that if you can own Monday morning, you can own the week. If you can own the week, you can own the year. And if you change your year, you can change your life. I have a young phenom in the filmmaking space on today's episode of Cook on Monday Morning. Right out the gate, she's made a documentary that was incredibly inspiring and eye-opening and impactful. That's based in the great city of Baltimore. Miss Emily Stubb film Deserted. I had the opportunity to participate in a panel with her alongside some other community activists and educators to talk about the issues of food deserts in the great city of Baltimore. I'm excited to talk more about that film today, to get into her story and, see where she wants to take her new and hopefully very long career as a creative. Thank you, Emily. I appreciate you doing this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
You grew up in Baltimore.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about your family, your upbringing.
Yeah, sure. Well, Baltimore is my city, but I technically grew up in Baltimore County. And I grew up in a pretty forested area. Grew up in a family of creatives. Both my parents are architects, and I have a whole family of artists. So art has been a part of my life since I was a kid, and so has the environment. Those two have been threads throughout my life. I think growing up in a forested environment, we had this stream behind my house that my sister and I would spend hours out there just like pretending to live off the land. And I think growing up in nature definitely made me feel more connected and fostered this like just deep love and appreciation and desire to protect it. And yeah, it was a great place to grow up.
I've never had the opportunity to visit Baltimore County or Baltimore. I think I was in Maryland once as a youngster, and I definitely had crab cakes. One of my early memories of Maryland. And then my reintroduction to Baltimore was through the TV show The Wire, which I mentioned during our panel together. Your documentary gave me, another slice of the city that was much fuller. And there is a lot about your upbringing that I kind of want to get into, but let's launch a bit into the documentary. So, Deserted, right? Like, talk a little bit about what Deserted is.
Sure. Yeah. Well, so Deserted is a 20-minute short documentary that looks at food apartheid in Baltimore. I guess, we'll get into this when we talk a bit more about the backstory, but I made this film as my thesis. So it was my first opportunity to make a film and like own a film. I have always loved food. I think within the environmental niche, food sustainability has been where my passion really lies. So when I had the opportunity to make my first film, I wanted to focus on food. And a lot of films have been made about the food system. It's unsustainable. It's broken in many ways. But who's being affected by that? And so I was really interested in exploring this intersection between food sustainability and social justice. And in college, I double majored in documentary filmmaking and environmental studies. And to me, filmmaking is a vehicle to make change and to, you know, get conversations started. And so to me, the environmental studies curriculum, like, yes, we're learning about the environment, but a large part, because I was more studies than science, a large part was focused on humanity and, you know, our experiences in the landscape. And so, you know, environmentalism to me is caring about all living beings, because we're so deeply connected in this system on this planet. So in making this film, I wanted to kind of backtrack and start with the consumer. You know, how are we being impacted by the food that we have access to? And in this country, there are a lot of barriers that have been put in place that determine who can access what, and what foods are available in certain locations. It's a short, and the time frame that I had to make the film was pretty small. So I'm currently working on expanding it into a feature, which I'm really excited about.
Yeah, having watched it more than once, it's a little over 20 minutes, but you touch on a lot of important issues, and I want to spend a little time unraveling that, and maybe we can continue to get into your story as we do that. When you started describing the film, you said food apartheid.
Mm-hmm.
So explain exactly what that is and why you think that term is appropriate for Baltimore.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Sometimes my questions are good. Sometimes. Go ahead. Look it to you.
I guess I'll start by saying food desert is the term that people probably are more familiar with, that is used more frequently. But I believe, and many other people in this field believe, that just does not accurately describe what's going on. You know, healthy food shouldn't be a privilege. Everybody should have access to healthy, fresh food, because, I mean, we all need to eat to survive. Like, that is one of the basic things of what it means to be human. There are systems that have been put in place that don't allow that to happen. And, you know, this thing that's so central to what it means to be human has been monetized and commodified, and it's been done by design. You know, as Eric Jackson from the Black Yield Institute here in Baltimore said in the film, you know, where you live impacts your palate, and, you know, your palate is shaped by what's available to you. And government policies, you know, over, you know, since the beginning of the 1900s have shaped who can access and what they can access for generations. So food apartheid implies that there's, you know, this didn't happen by accident. There are structures that have been put in place that have created this environment that we see. And this applies to the entire country, not Baltimore. I mean, I focused on Baltimore in my film because that's where I'm from. And so I, you know, kind of wanted to put a microscope on it. Yeah, this is a problem, not just in cities, in rural areas as well. It's a big issue.
Yeah, there are several policy issues that will be important to dive into related to Deserted. How'd you come up with the title?
That's a good question. I was kind of under the gun. My professor was like, write down the title for your film right now. And I just, that was the first thing that came to my mind. Kind of was playing on food desert. These environments have been deserted in a sense, you know?
Yeah, it's very catchy. And
Yeah.
I mean, catchy in a way that is like moving, not like, ooh, that's cute, you know, but like, it's like, there's meaning in this. And I would say it's like, I mean, there's a lot packed into it, right? Because even as you connect it to this idea of food apartheid, which I think makes sense if you are trying to relay that government is intentionally, because apartheid was like obviously people who may not know, like a structure that prohibited blacks in South Africa from going to various places without papers, and it was a very oppressive system, segregation, right, for the U.S. and redlining, which in redlining you touch on in the film. So Deserted, at least for me, and this is a good thing about you being a creative, like you put something out there and then a bunch of people can say, oh, this is what it means to me. But
That's the best part, kind of, you know?
yeah, yeah. The community's been left behind, right? And by its government. Like residents have been failed by their government. They're left out to dry. But then it also kind of relates to dessert, which is only relevant because a lot of what you see in the film is like unhealthy food that tastes good. That's what you've seen a lot of our communities: processed, unhealthy, Taki and cream cheese and like, stuff that I grew up eating, right? In the neighborhood I grew up in. I grew up as a part of a community that has similar food access issues, or a home life where like, you went to the corner store. You went to the corner store to get whatever. So how do you interpret my read of the title? How does that land with you?
I like it. I don't think anybody's really broken it down for me before, so I'm digging it. But yeah, I mean, I think I appreciate your read, first of all. But yeah, I mean, I wanted it to be intriguing. I didn't want to just like lay it all out there like a big sentence. I'm a big fan of one-word titles. There's a lot to the issue. And so it is hard to sum it up in one word. But yeah, I think, like you said, it's kind of playing on the type of food and also the actions behind it.
Yeah, and so you nailed it. You were under the gun. You just got it out there. That's probably a better way to have it happen.
Yeah, I had been meditating on that for a while, but like couldn't commit to it. And then when I was put under the gun, I was like, all right, that's what it is. So
yeah.
But,
and so you did this while you were a senior in college.
Yes.
And you've now graduated?
Now graduated, yes.
Where'd you go to undergrad?
I went to Ithaca College, yes. I need to shout out Ithaca because they supported this film for sure, in some funding. So big shout out to my school. But yeah, it was such a great experience. I love my school, and I'm so thankful for the education that I got there. Double majoring in environmental studies and documentary film was, when I was looking for schools, that's what I was looking for, a school that had strong programs in each. And Ithaca made the cut. So, yeah.
I remember we talked about that. We talked about Ithaca in our conversation before the podcast.
Yeah.
So from Baltimore County, went to school at Ithaca. While were you going back and forth between campus and Baltimore to film this? Like, what was the timeline like? How long did it take to film?
Yeah, we filmed everything in a week. So we came down during our spring break and shot everything in that week. And, there were a lot of scheduling conflicts that, came out of the blue, and we didn't get to spend as much time as I had planned with Anthony, my main character. And, but we made it work. It was also tough too, because we got so much material that cutting it down to 20 minutes was so difficult that, we only really scratched the surface of all the activism that Anthony is doing. And, I don't even know if we would have had time to include everything. So
yeah, I gotta try to get Anthony on here too. So when you say we, who was we? Who was involved?
Yes, shout out to my team. Stephen Nunley and Rebecca Vandermolen were on camera, and Zach Martin was my editor, and he did all the animation in the film. So it was a small crew. We stayed at my house to shoot, which helped save some money. But it was quick. It was quick and dirty, kind of. We just kind of went in, and, there were I think we got a well-rounded group of people in the film, but there were a lot of people that it just like timing didn't work out. And it was tough because we were working under this constraint of the semester, which isn't typical when you're making a film, So there were obstacles we kind of had to work with, but yeah, it came together.
Yeah, I thought the editing and animation was on point, and the quality of the film. You wouldn't have guessed. I mean, with the access to better quality equipment, I don't really know what you used, but um, I think the assumption is that if it's a college project, it's not going to be as top notch as the one that you all put together. You know, from a layperson, right? But but it's good. It looks like professionals did it. You know, and so shout out to your team as well. Was it how did y'all come together? Did you like ask them all? Were you in the same class? Like, how did it work?
Zach he was also in the thesis class. And so I pitched this topic to the class, and this is my film, this is the film I want to make, and these are the positions I'm looking to fill. And so he he was interested in it, and reached out to me. And then Stephen and Rebecca, they were not in the class, but are beautiful cinematographers, and they were very into the project. The stars aligned on this because Rebecca was shooting a different documentary in West Virginia, and it was like the second day of shooting, and she, it was kind of left open, like, I'm working on this other project, I don't know if I'll be able to join. The stars aligned. She ended up driving back up north on their second day, and she just stopped in Maryland. She was so tired, but she did a great job holding the rig for a week, 2 weeks. So it was good. And I appreciate your words on it. I know I probably shouldn't open it up like, this was my thesis. But
No, you should.
What it was.
You should. I mean, up and coming, great young talent, like all those things are things that people like, fresh perspective, right? Like, who is Emily Stubb? Oh, you did this. How did wow? Imagine if we put some actual money behind you, what you could do. Like, those are all things I think that, and people I think are. I mean, at least in my experience, I've seen people be excited about anybody passionate to put a project together, but especially if it's as meaty as yours is for a person that's like right out of school. Like, you have a lot going for you and your team. So, like, by comparison, when I was in college, I got into filmmaking and I did music videos, right? And the thing that I loved about the projects is definitely nothing that's like serious. That's what you did, right? But what I learned about myself, which has served me well in my career, like the experience I got trying to put it together, the stuff not going well, everything in school was like, oh, this is the outline, these are the deadlines, you do it for the grade, you know? So this was my first experience. Like, there is no grade. There's just an idea. I got to pull it all together. Stuff happens. You got to figure it out. And then I just became it was like super stressful. And I was like really obsessed, right? And then when it was over, I missed it. That feeling, like trying to build something, is what filmmaking gave me when I was in college. And I definitely think it's the reason why I believe that I can go out and just like try some stuff, because I got that experience doing that. Is filmmaking something that you see yourself staying in, or do you have interest in other fields? Or
Yeah. Well, first, I just want to comment on that. I love that. The music videos, that's great. Yeah, filmmaking is just such an intimate process. And like, you're in it. And then once it's over, it's just, it's a sad goodbye. But yeah, filmmaking, I kind of stumbled into filmmaking a little bit. Like I mentioned before, growing up as an artist, like, I was always making things. I've been making art since I could hold a paintbrush, and I loved experimenting with different mediums. I went to an arts magnet high school, where I focused on photography and painting and drawing. So I should shout out to my school, George Washington Carver Center.
Okay.
Amazing school. Yeah, named after one of the greatest people ever.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
um, and so, yeah, the early years were really just building your foundational skills of painting and drawing. And it wasn't until I moved into my senior year of high school that we had AP Studio, where we just got so much freedom. And I moved more into the making art with meaning versus the technical side of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was when I really started to use art as a way to express larger ideas and start a conversation around different topics. And I connected the environmental piece then. So I was making, I did this series of recycled weavings where I cut up aluminum cans and wove them together, kind of like unraveled them into like little strips. And another that was some configuration of plastic bags in 6-pack soda bottles. And that was kind of my comment on, our personal footprint, the waste that we produce as humans. And yeah, so high school was really that transition from just environmentalism in art to activism in art. Mm-hmm. And towards the end of high school, my environmental science class and my English class, something lined up there. And I read Fast Food Nation in my English class, and at the same time was showed Food Inc. in environmental science. And the combination of those two pieces just like lit a fire and just sparked this passion in me that I knew that food sustainability was a conversation I wanted to take on in my work. That was kind of that transition. And this just disbelief of just these injustices that were happening. And I wanted to use my voice as an artist to make change. And so Food Inc. was really an important piece or moment in my journey. Just in, I think, realizing the power of documentary. And so then in college, that's when I kind of traded the, more tactile mixed media for the digital landscape.
It'd be interesting for you to share a few behind the scenes stories about the making of Deserted, that kind of highlight moments where that challenged you. And I also want to talk about race and how you thought about that when approaching the film. And so when I was talking about making music videos and stuff not going well, right? Like one example is everybody got high. And so it's a music video, they're drunk and high. And I can't find the person that I need for the thing. Or there was some turf stuff that was happening. So people got upset with each other, and it put me like in a very, very like uncomfortable situation, and I had to try to resolve and like move around or whatever. You talked a little about scheduling conflicts. Was there any like drama that happened with you and your team, or you and the other subjects, or what comes to mind? Was it all smooth and peachy?
Yeah, that's a good question. I feel like I was my own worst enemy a little bit because I just like really, I don't want to say overbooked, but I packed our schedule. Like we were burnt out a little bit, after the first couple of days, because I just like stacked so many things. Like the first day we had all the interviews with the kids. And so that was like a full day at Southwest Baltimore Charter School. And we interviewed 2 kids from each grade, K through 8. And, it doesn't sound like a lot, but it was. It was a lot. And then we had to leave there and go to an interview. completely separate. Just interviewing the kids would have been enough for one day. But so most of our days looked like that. They were just very stacked. And so by the end of it, I think we all were losing steam a bit. So that was a lesson learned for sure. Things were great with the team. There was no drama there.
Did you learn anything about yourself as a leader? Do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, this was my first time really leading a project.
What'd you learn about yourself? And what are some of your lessons on leadership?
Yeah, lots of lessons. I mean, I think there's a fine line between being, telling people what to do and like taking authority. And I think it took me some time to like figure that out. Because I want to be respectful and nice, of what everybody needs. But knowing when it's, when you just have to step in and just take control and say, this is what we're doing. So yeah, I learned a lot as just a young director making my first film about, how to, that fine line, that working with that balance.
What was that like for you that first time where you had to be like, this is what we're doing?
I mean, maybe I didn't describe it that well because I take charge and that's okay. But I think, because you have to as a director and as a producer, you have to, otherwise you're not going to get things done. But I think when like I said, I overbooked things and, it was a lot of like managing stress and just, working with what's thrown at you. And I think, that was surprisingly handled well. I mean, I shouldn't say surprisingly, but, I handled it well. Like things were canceled and I found things to replace them, so we were never not doing something, which maybe we could have used that break, but
I definitely want to remain in touch with you as you take on other projects and because I'm just interested in see where your career goes.
really.
So on the subject of race, right? Like with obviously I shouldn't. So I had on in a recent podcast the director of equity for Baltimore City Public Schools. We brought up a number of topics related to education and the city of Baltimore, but in Baltimore, it's a majority Black city that has all Black leadership and issues and grapples with structural racism. And so talking to her was interesting because being in San Francisco, that's not the case, right? We have a Black mayor. We've always had some Black representation in leadership. Like Kamala Harris is from San Francisco, for example, right? And always is like an overstatement. Over the last 30 years, there's been somebody Black around, but the population has dwindled tremendously. And the discussion becomes like white versus Black as opposed to like structures harming Black people. Now in Baltimore, Black people are in charge of those structures, which is like kind of like interesting. It's like, oh, because we often say if Black people were running things would be better. And when you talk to people that live in Baltimore, there's folks like it's things aren't good here, because of the structures. So that's been an intriguing conversation for me. For you, right? This is your home county, and you're covering a community that you can grow up in from another race. What was your take on that? Like, how did you think about doing that?
I mean, when I set out to make this film, like race really wasn't like, I didn't, come into it with this like white savior complex. Like, I'm going to tell this story. Like that really wasn't the goal. I mean, obviously, yes, to your point, like, I respect this topic and I see it as a problem. And that's why I want to use my voice and my platform to get these conversations started. But yeah, I mean, it's not a issue that I necessarily grew up experiencing or, lived in these environments. So yeah, I mean, am an outsider coming in to that from that perspective. So I never wanted to like put this agenda on it or make it. I went into it letting the people tell me the story and then piecing it together from there. Like I had a general idea of where it might go, but with my time with Anthony in Harlem Park, and sitting down for an interview with Eric Jackson, and learning from people who are living this every day, I let their voices shine through because that's what's most important.
Yeah, I think you do a good job of it. I know you're passionate about the topic. Did you have any reservations about like, oh, are they going to trust me, or like maybe I shouldn't do this, or was that not a factor? You were just like, this is a great idea and I want to pursue it.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I was a little naive in that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, that didn't really hold me back.
Mm-hmm.
I just, I saw the value in having this conversation. I didn't really think about or put too much of an emphasis on, like, I guess me being a white woman coming in and telling the story, which I would totally understand reservations or distrust. But I have no biases. Like, I'm just coming in to give you a platform to share your story.
So you're going to do an extended version of this project. I'm sure you probably have tell me about your idea process. Like, are you a person that nurses one, or do you have 1,000 in a minute? Like, what's going on with you?
That's probably the latter. It's constantly changing and evolving. I don't want to give too much away on the next film.
No exclusives for Cook on Monday Morning. Okay.
Maybe next time. But yeah, I mean, it's going to look at the country as a whole, and it's going to really dive deeper into this connection between housing, I guess I'll call it, and food, and how deeply tied, those two are. Housing policies, and just the things that created these environments that we live in. I think that was one of the biggest revelations for me in making this film that I didn't know was going to play as big a role when I set out to make Deserted, just how deeply tied food and just access and the policies that have shaped this country are. It's disturbing.
Yeah, so I'm interested in seeing where that goes. So there's 1,000 a minute. So you have something in mind. Are there other topics that you want to get into besides the ones you're already kind of working on?
Oh, just in general, just other
in
films.
terms of like doing documentaries on different subjects. Do you want to do anything on? I don't know.
Yeah. No, that's a good question. I mean, I can't lie. Food is kind of my priority.
Okay.
I think maybe the one after that is going to look at food as medicine and food as a healing substance, which is why we all need access to fresh food. It's so important. It's so important.
We should talk about food then. Because, so do you have any diet restrictions? Do you what's your, you eat everything, or?
That was a good cue. Yeah, so it's kind of ironic that my, this industry that I've kind of set out to, or want to take on in my work, has been affecting me my whole life, and I didn't even know it. I've actually had chronic pain since I was 4 years old that nobody could figure out. Nobody knew what was going on. Like, throughout my life, I just accumulated all these random symptoms that doctors in traditional Western medicine just couldn't figure out. They had no idea what was going on. And it was right after I made Deserted that I started to work with people outside Western medicine to try and like heal my body and calm down the inflammation that was causing all these problems. So my diet's a little bit atypical right now because I'm on a strict diet, only eating certain foods that aren't inflammatory. But yeah, it's kind of a full circle moment.
And have you noticed any changes?
Definitely. Yeah, 100%. I wouldn't say I'm healed yet. It's definitely been a slow journey, but I've seen improvements. And I am starting to heal for sure, or have been. It's been like almost 2 years that I've been, in this process. And so that's kind of where that other film topic I mentioned comes from. It's just, this is knowledge I think we all need to be, everybody, deserves to be aware of, like, to what extent these industries are really affecting us,
Mm-hmm.
in so many ways.
I've like me and sugar, that's like my, I don't drink or do drugs, which I stopped maybe like in my late 20s. But me and sugar though, it's like, it's like my, it's my thing. My fight is with sugar. So I did this 30-day sugar fast, and I went through the mood changes, and my weight dropped tremendously. I've also done like coffee fast, so I've gotten off of different things, but it's always been hard for me to keep to a particular eating regimen. Like one of the things that I let go of was, in addition to drugs and alcohol, was pork and red meat. So I still eat chicken and fish. And I go weeks at a time without eating, a meat or whatever. Then I came into all the information related to Dr. Sebi. Have you heard of him?
I don't think so, actually.
He's an interesting person to look up, but he got famous over this controversy back in the like 80s, 90s, where he claimed that he cured HIV. He cured AIDS through his food practices. So there was this trial where they were trying to imprison him for false advertisement, and then he was acquitted of all his charges, but the reasons why were never revealed. So people like Nick Cannon and Nipsey Hussle, they were collaborating to try to do a documentary on him. But Dr. Sebi is like a very well-known figure in the hip-hop community, the Black community. A lot of people have heard of Dr. Sebi. And he's essentially naturopath, healer, vegan, has a lot of testimonies from people that claim that his way of eating has cured a lot of illnesses that they weren't able to heal from. So, very interesting figure. Very interesting figure.
Is that a vegan diet? Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
So is that like, what is the regimen that he recommends? Do you know? Is it vegan?
Yeah, it's all, he has like I have a book, 77 meals, like diet, Dr. Sebi food recipes. He has like a list of all the things that you can eat and the things that you should avoid. But in this particular book, it puts all of it together as a different meal options. So I forget the things that you can't eat. I think I know eggs and cheese are definitely on there. I'll have to look through it, but I'll send you a copy of it too.
Yeah, that would be great.
What are the things that you are only eating now? Can you get into it?
So I'm no sugar at all, which has been tough because I love sweets. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I commend you. It's rough. How long has it been?
Like 6 months, maybe.
Okay, so I won't send you any cookies as a thank you after this.
I won't be able to eat them. But, yeah, it's been like a couple months off of no fruit too. So no sugar and no fruit. So no natural sugars. And then it's been tough because environmentalist. Like I was vegan before all of this happened. And, doing so for sustainability reasons. And going on this diet, apparently everything on the vegan diet, all beans, a lot of vegetables, I can only have a certain amount of nuts, like all these healthy foods were inflammatory and just bad. So I am on currently a all meat diet. It's just all meat and like vegetables, but there are certain vegetables that I can only have a certain amount of because of the way that they break down and like the level of fermentability in the gut. So that was like that was a big change for me to go from no meat to all meat. Putting my environmental beliefs aside, it's helping me heal. So I'm doing it. It's been quite a journey because I love food so much. Like I love trying new foods. I love experimenting. I love to cook. And it's just been extremely difficult to, have part of my identity taken away to a degree. But, I've been making the best of it. I get super creative with the foods that I can eat and make meals that are good. So, but it's, the goal is to get to a point where I can, start eating more normally again, but I just got to, clear up most of that inflammation before I can get there. So I'll let you know when I'm at that point.
Yeah, please do. Please do. Okay. So for the film, what was the budget for it?
The budget was super small. I mean, we had equipment from Ithaca, and we didn't have to pay room and board because we stayed here. So, I mean, we made the film for under $1,000, which was pretty good.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, and how can people support the film? Where can they go? Can they purchase it? Can they view it? Like, what's the way to check it out?
Yeah, the film will be on PBS streaming at the end of this year.
Okay.
So yeah, they'll be able to check it out there.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So we have some rapid fire questions to end our discussion.
All right, I'm ready.
Do you meditate?
Yes. It's not super frequently. I do yoga every morning. That's something I've started in quarantine.
Do you have a motto?
Yes. JFK. One person can make a difference and everyone should try.
What personal weakness can you forgive in someone?
That's a tough one. Maybe fear.
The house is on fire, your family is out. You have to grab 3 things. What do you grab?
Oh my gosh. The family is out. 3 things. My journal. I don't want to say like my computer, my hard drives. I don't know if I could live without all my media, my films and stuff. So definitely the hard drives. I'm going to count that as one. Oh my gosh. My cat.
Cool. Last and final question. Who's going to win the presidential election?
It better be Joe Biden. There's no other alternative. That's a scary question, though. That's a scary one.
This is Emily Stubb, director of Deserted, awesome filmmaker, great spirit, dope guest. Thank you, Emily. This was fun. I appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you. This was great. I appreciate you back.
Peace. And thank you for listening to another episode of Cook on Monday Morning. At Cook on Monday Morning, we are building lives that make us excited about Monday morning. We believe that if you can own Monday morning, you can own the week. If you can own the week, you can own the year. And if you change your year, you can change your life. I had such a great time getting to know and talking to the really incredible young filmmaker, Emily Stubb, diving deep on her story and her new film, Deserted. I hope that you'll look it up, follow her on Instagram. We'll put her Instagram uh, handle on the screen and support her, elevate the story of the good people in Baltimore, support good people. So thank you again, Emily, for coming on the podcast. I also like to thank our listeners. Thank you. I'm grateful for you and I appreciate your continued support. Please share the podcast with a friend. Help us grow our community of doers. When you get a chance, if you get a chance, please also take a minute to subscribe to the podcast on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you listen to it on Apple, if you take a second to rate and review it, it helps people find it. So please do that and help us grow and let people know that this is worth listening to. Now, if you're interested in starting a podcast, I wrote an article. It's called How to Start a Podcast During the Pandemic. It goes over all the equipment that I use and some helpful book recommendations. So you can see the full article in the description box below. So Cook on Monday Morning is a product of the Luther Harris Holding Company. At the Luther Harris Holding Company, we work to create solutions that drive social impact. We do that by building partnerships between businesses and government. We recruit diversity talent to high impact roles, and we help companies drive impact in the communities where they do business. If you'd like to learn more, please send me an email at info@stevoncook.com. I'd like to thank the people that make this podcast possible. Our videographer, David Topete, our copy editors, Fernando and Cinco Marquez and Devin Skessinger. Now, I get up every morning with the intention to create value and showcase my love to the people that keep our cities moving. They are our teachers, school lunch workers, custodians, social workers, firefighters, police officers, EMT workers, garbage collectors, bus drivers, and nurses. They are our employers, the folks creating jobs and keeping our economy moving. They are our gig workers, stocking our shelves, driving our ride share, delivering our food. To all of you, this podcast is for you. You live in places like San Francisco, Oakland, Richmond, Antioch, San Mateo, Los Angeles, Dallas, Houston, New Orleans, Baton Rouge, Miami, the Carolinas, Virginia Beach, Milwaukee, Kansas City, Cleveland, Detroit, Harlem, Brooklyn. Shout out to all of our listeners also in Nigeria, Ghana, Jamaica, Kenya, and Ethiopia. To all of you, this podcast is for you. This message is touching the world and will continue to because of you. Until we meet again. Peace, peace, and we out.